Hey, this is Rasbane with Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR episode something. We're recording this very early compared to when this is going to be posted. This is our post-mortem episode on Blades in the Dark, The Blind Eyes. We're recording this a week after we finished the campaign itself. And so, of course, it wouldn't make sense to post the post-mortem until we posted all those episodes. There's a lot of posting going on. And you know, as you have listened to by now, there are 24 episodes in the campaign. So yeah, and right now RPPR has just posted like the 4th episode. So it's going to be a hot minute before we get to it. But it's better to record this now before we wait 8 months or whatever and try to remember the campaign after an 8-month, period. So
I hope all of you still have electricity to listen to this in 8 months.
Oh yeah.
A distant future.
Yeah.
And you're not like listening to this on some sort of exercise bike you've hooked to a generator to power your enclave. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
good luck out there from the past.
No, they're
sorry, we fucked it up. Yeah.
Their Biden administration assigned persona will help them in these dark times.
I mean, that you fight for your tribe, and their persona is basically your mascot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there you go. So yeah, we have most of the primary cast. Baz took a hiatus from the campaign, so we love and respect Baz here. But yeah, he Sir not appearing in this campaign post-mortem. But yeah, so we have Caleb, Burke, Bill, and Aaron here, who of course were the Blind Eyes, and I guess I'll begin this by sort of setting of like how most RPPR campaigns have been. The GM has come up with an idea for a campaign, like some sort of concept of like, oh, wouldn't this be cool? Tribes of Tokyo. What if you're fighting vampires in Tokyo and secretly there's some Cthulhu Mythos bullshit, and but you really play it off as long as you can.
Ross Payton, ladies and gentlemen.
Or God's Teeth, your Delta Green Cell. But you're all secretly working for, working curse something of Bast. It's complicated. And then of course
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And of course, yeah. But Blaze in the Dark started because last year we couldn't meet in person, and we basically wanted a campaign, and I asked Caleb, like, what would you want to play, since Caleb, you had time to play in a campaign for once. And
yeah, thank God.
Yeah. And you said Blades in the Dark, and I said, all right, I'll just start running Blades in the Dark. And that was it. Like, so it was, I guess, how most actual RPG campaigns start is like, do you want to run this? And like, okay. And then the game starts. Wasn't like, aha, I have an idea.
It was nice because it was on a weekend, and I normally can't play weekend games because I think it's a bad idea. Because like when the world is functioning, you always have to go someplace on a weekend, and the game always gets canceled. But weekends were deleted as a concept, so just every Saturday I was in my PJ pants and not going anywhere because the world was ending.
Yeah.
So it's sort of had room to expand and become its own thing from those humble origins, when it turned out nothing was really demanding my time on Saturdays for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah,
which is why my utterly stupid character concept was around for way too long. Yeah.
Wow.
Drove Flake through the ground. And I apologize, but it's not something that Ross hasn't done before. And
I don't know what you're talking about.
I learned from him.
What are you talking about? My characters are richly nuanced character studies.
I was just doing what Daddy does.
I think I speak for the rest of the group when I say we all stand Flake.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Flake was certainly. Every character in this campaign was, colorful, interesting, good. I like them. I stand them all. Because I mean, you could, especially by the end, there were I think every character did have their moments, and there was a lot of good contrast between player characters. So like there was good conflict in scenes. But yeah, for me, the early campaign is of course just learning Blades in the Dark, because it is, although I'd had run Scum and Villainy, there are differences. So I learned Scum and Villainy before I learned Blades in the Dark, which is the opposite order of how those games were written. It was first Blades in the Dark and then Scum and Villainy. So it's like, things I had learned in Scum and Villainy are actually not correct in Blades in the Dark, which was slightly oops. And sort of getting used to the mindset that you have to have for a good Blades in the Dark game. And then just, of course, immersing myself in the learning this, the setting and how it works, which we'll get into later. But yeah, so for me, it was just almost like running just a series of one shots, but with the same characters. So there's not a whole lot else other than you guys are smugglers, do a crime. But yeah, Bill, yeah, what are your thoughts on the early campaign, I guess? First couple episodes.
So I thought a lot about this, actually, because, I mean, cards on the table, I probably preferred the earlier part of the campaign more than the latter. But, like, I am not, like, critiquing, like, you having a plot, Ross. It's the confines of doing this as a podcast that this thing needed to move along. But, like, there's this... So I remember, like, reading Blades back in 2016, and just like being awed at the levels at which the resource management mechanics work. And like with an outright plot, it's harder to see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what tends to nudge me towards the earlier parts. I wish, to a certain extent, I almost wish this wasn't a recorded thing that needed a more defined endpoint. So we could have turned it into, okay, what thing do we need next on the crew sheet? How do we find one? How do we go get it? What is the fallout from going and getting it, et cetera, et cetera?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we basically ignored that part of the metagame. But I do find it interesting, though, because like that is essentially Blades in the Dark as designed. It is just a sandbox. And if you're going to find a narrative through line through it, you have to navigate that by picking that up in the sandbox. But what that means is like by the aspect of picking up a single narrative through line, by the necessity of doing that, you kind of restrict yourself into like certain styles of play and focus. So I think it's kind of interesting as a design level, as in the game kind of refuses to give you anything to do that. Like there is no firewall campaign as a baseline or something in Blades in the Dark, and that's a conscious choice. But by choosing to do that, like you kind of have to make that metagame part yourself, or just sort of endlessly play until you stop. Like, yeah.
And that's sort of what I meant by not having an idea when I ran the campaign. Like, like normally I would create some sort of framing mechanism to sort of drive a narrative, and this one was not. And then Blades, and yeah, obviously some games have that sort of built in, like you mentioned Firewall and Eclipse Phase, but Blades in the Dark very much does not. So it's just how to do crimes in this city, and you have to engineer your own narratives.
Yeah, there's not really a success mechanic, because like if you die or if you like retire the $1 million, you're still retired. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think about it. I don't have a judgment of it, but from a game design perspective.
Burke, are there any thoughts you have on the early campaign, especially those first few episodes where we're sort of getting our legs?
Yeah, probably somewhere in the plot centrism column on this one is that I liked the early stuff. Like I don't think Blades or most PBTA stuff functions well for a 24 session campaign, as much fun as it was. I think it's really designed for the 8 to 10, especially with stress and traumas. I think you're kind of just supposed to ride your character until you retire or the wheels fall off.
But kind of only designed for 8 to 10. Like,
yeah.
like nearly impossible to play as a one shot in terms of like I would be motivated to learn the setting enough to get through a one shot, but not want to do a second one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Because you have to make up so much of it yourself. Like,
so I think if we were to do a second one or Scum and Villainy or something, I think kind of combined approaches where you have to have a little bit of something overarching, but it doesn't have to be as grandiose as we ended up with, like bringing back the sun and killing demons and saving the planet. I think there's like a nice sort of building up to a retirement score arc you could have and still engage with all the metagame stuff of improving your crew. Because it got towards the last 10 sessions where I don't think we even marked crew XP just because it didn't it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah,
we weren't using
we had the engine. It was kind of done.
It was very much, you know what it reminded me of? Not that we need to be calling back endlessly to in-jokes and stuff, but it reminded me a lot of the Iron Heroes campaign. Where by the end of it, we just kind of forgot about the overall crew leveling up part of things that we took from Rain.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting when you're talking about like the 8 to 10 session thing, because one criticism I've read from other people at Blades in the Dark is that, and I guess this sort of complements that, is that the characters become too powerful or too competent to fail on a consistent basis by the end in Blades in the Dark once they get enough advancements that unless they roll. Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't actually make sense.
Well,
because shouldn't this is very philosophical, but shouldn't characters be challenging bigger groups where they have to succeed better, essentially, to get required effect that should push them? Like, trauma is a retirement mechanic.
Right.
Like, it's intrinsically a troop style game. If the long term is that your characters are getting too powerful, you're undercommitting as the GM, and you're not pushing characters out because the onboarding is simple.
Yeah. I mean, these are I mean, you can certainly make that criticism, but I think characters have a lot. Once they level up, they not only have more dice that they're rolling, they have more ways. They also have more get out of jail free cards, like the I can use my special armor to ignore the consequences of failing this type of roll. There's several abilities like that. And you just have more tools available to you to ignore certain things and roll better and gain better effect. That's sort of the criticism. And then I was trying to ratchet up things quite a bit, and especially in the last few sessions, and you all still persevered despite that. I mean, I was giving you a lot of desperate rolls, but
that said, like, show of hands in this Discord chat, how many of us were on our third drama ratcheting up to our fourth?
I was on my third, but I was also on my third for like the last half of the campaign.
Yeah.
So,
and I was only to my.
I just learned to manage it better. By being generally recalcitrant and not doing anything until it came to hurting stuff. Which is why I wasn't a very good team player. I don't think I've ever min-maxed as hard as I did with Flake, which was nice.
And
I've never let my grognard fly that hard. But
I think some of those criticisms in terms of stuff being overpowered, which I've also seen, were also leveled at players who abuse the setup to make everything desperate. So they're just always stacking skill XP and then dump their then dump their regular XP into purchasing abilities and stuff like that.
Once you can get veteran, put reflexes on a cutter, it's over. Like, the way reflexes is worded is just from the lurk. Is just, if it comes down to who goes first, you go first. Like, done.
Yeah, that came up quite a bit.
Every fight is over. It's great.
That's certainly fair.
But yeah, I'm not criticizing the game. That's just me. But also, not to be Slavoj for a minute, but I'm going to be. You see, the materials reality of the podcast. So you talked about onboarding being easy, Bill. Onboarding is easy in the game mechanics. But narrative onboarding, as in there was a character I liked, and now there's a character I don't have any reason to give a shit about, is a lot harder to ask. So
Yeah.
again, the medium is the message. The materialist reality makes the idealist conception. All that kind of stuff.
I mean, I guess the only thing I would rejoin to that, and it's not a great one, like, I'm not going to die on this hill, but, like, if you're running the crew as a crew, right? Like, if we had more than 2 named NPCs in the crew throughout the extent of the campaign, it would have been easier to promote one. Not that this ever came up, right? This is a very abstract conversation at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, that's that.
I would have liked to have seen an Aaron Stradler or Waldor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
think you would have done an excellent job.
So, although in one thing,
You old sea dog, you.
in Blazing the Dark, there actually is an out to onboard new characters and still care about them. In that you could say, "Well, Flake's dead, but now Flake's a ghost, and now here's a playbook as Flake is a ghost, or as a Hull, or as a vampire." They actually do have the rules to have a character come back from the dead in those 3 ways. So, but we'll talk more about ghosts, I guess, in a little bit. Aaron, yeah, your thoughts on the early campaign?
It pretty much reflects everybody else's. That I did appreciate the freeform where it was just living your life from scheme to scheme and trying to figure out how we were getting up in the world. I would say the only thing I probably struggled with a little bit, just because of my more misunderstanding and of the system, and later on, is the actual for salvage and the characters where you're trying to engineer stuff. I know they had the ritual side of it, which seemed a little bit easier, but the design aspects of what you'd have to do from each part of the campaign seemed pretty tacked on, honestly. So, and I felt like there was one where I would have an idea to do something, but depending on the stress that we were taking almost on in the game, it felt like that would just be really difficult to pull off without really pushing yourself into the higher trauma camp parts early on.
Well, I mean, I think part of that is design. Like, the game is like running like a clock. Your character is going to burn out. It is not done at a sustainable rate. The question is how fast. Where will you be when you burn out? That is very much how the game is intended to be played. So
the Blades design.
I don't get me wrong too. I like the clock system of this a lot. So to the point where I actually added that to one of my Patreon games just recently because for a scene, because I really, really enjoyed the stress that it puts on here. But just for like some of the long-term development that we did, and I think this is more just an effect that we ran such a long campaign, is that it was hard to kind of get more of a grasp on that. So at least for me.
Okay. That's fair.
Hot take. The design system in Blades has crunch built in.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I will say this: Blades is definitely inspired me as a game designer in that the next RPG I want to do, I wanted to be at least in the same league in terms of presentation and design, like in terms of the actual, like, not just the graphic design, but like how information is presented and what kind of information is presented. Cause like the Blades, like I had the hardcover book inside of the PDF and I would look things up in that because it was so easy to, and just the way, everything in there was useful information. There wasn't like unnecessary bloat or padding. Like I felt Blades is sort of on another level in terms of its design, just like graphic design and just like information design, just how it laid out things, how it structured chapters and that sort of thing. So
graphic design, you mean Kickstarter bait?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm referencing the grognardiest tweet ever that Morkborg totally owned a guy with.
Yep.
Good job, Morkborg.
Yep. Yeah, if you it's just bad. It's just cheap to have good graphic design in a game because that'll make people want to buy
larger than 8-sized font.
Yep.
Yeah.
How dare you make people want to buy your game by looking at it?
Yeah, pictures steal the production value of rules.
Yeah. Yeah, so like we had, of course, our introductory game, then the medicine show, then the goat, then our dinner party, then the fifth one was the smuggling, the curious haul, and then the sixth. So around the sixth or seventh game, we start talking about out of game. Well, we're just doing the same thing every week. We're just doing a score every week. And I'm like, okay, we kind of need a plot. It's like, all right. So this is what everyone was talking about during the game. So I sort of looked through the book, and one of the things that's so useful is they have a list of factions in Blades in the Dark, and each faction is just like half a page, and their goals are left very fairly ambiguous about what they're very open. So I looked at Lord Skurlock, the vampire who's secretly serving a demon lord, and the demon lord the demon Satara wants to release a nest of demons. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And then another faction that you guys have is the Leviathan Hunters, who you were allied with or you were friendly with, and they're desperate because they're running out of Leviathans to hunt. And Leviathans are a type of demon. So I'm like, oh, well, that's an interesting conflict there, that the Leviathan Hunters need demons, and Satara wants to release a bunch of demons. So what if they were both vying over this nest of demons? And that's sort of where I got the idea for the plot. It was it's in the book, or at least the sort of seeds of it, and that's where I started laying down the foundation for that. So yeah, I guess we should talk about the main plot. It did go on we started it really session 9, which was the smuggling the woman and the sacred one past Satara, the demon. You had to do the get through the border without triggering the ritual. Yeah, so what did you guys think of the plot? Because I did try to ask for your input, but I didn't want it in an explicit way. I just kind of want like themes and things like that. So yeah, do you think I hit the mark? Did you like the plot? Didn't like the plot? What would that kind of thing? So
I'll go. Or go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. Yeah, personally, I still like that. I will always say that I'm a very big sucker for the advanced Atlantis futurist world that preceded the Dark Dank one, and trying to bring that back. So yeah, I always absolutely like that too. But I also like the fact that we were only given small hints and really only having just kind of intuit a lot of that beforehand. Before we were given a large amount of the answers with the Soul Engine. So I was absolutely enjoyed it.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, like from an objective perspective, like I liked it as a sort of, maybe not world. Well, yeah, actually, I guess in the end, like world altering scale. The only thing that bugged me was like sort of the shift, and I think you handled it like as pretty well. Sort of with what Aaron was saying, that we got like eased into it, but to try to put numbers on it, I feel like we were dealing with tier 1, tier 2 threats, and then it's like, oh, all of a sudden tier 5 things want your attention. Deal with that.
Yeah. That is one criticism I have of the Blade system, is the whole tier, and to another degree the effect system is they just your position and effect, and then of course tiers were sort of described, but they're not, like, it's still left fairly ambiguous in terms of the impact tiers and effect have. I don't know. It's something that I think I'm beginning to get a better handle on, but now I've run between Blades and Scum and Villainy like 30 sessions of the system, and I'm still not 100% comfortable with it. So I don't know. Maybe I missed the part in the rules where it described that, but it feels very underwritten, unlike a lot of the other systems in the game, in terms of like what works and what doesn't and how you're supposed to use it. So, but yeah, I get that too. You did jump from fighting other gangs to fighting the movers and shakers of the city. Yeah.
I'm not saying that is in any way a bad story. Like on its face, I enjoyed it. It just wasn't quite what I was expecting.
All right. I mean, that's fair. Burke, any thoughts on the main plot?
No, I also liked it. I think you could have even gotten away with just doing Soul Engine stuff and the consequences of having something that turns ghosts and entities into whatever you want, even without all the demons saving the planet type stuff. So I think if you were to, like, not that you're going to, but if this is being rewritten as like, write up your campaign, Ross, we're going to publish it. Just focus on that and just start to introduce hints of it earlier. Like, have the early heist be tangentially related to that, then building up to like what it really is, and then the consequences of using it.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
Early capitalism, late feudalism, straight to post-scarcity ghost economy is pretty jarring leap forward for a setting by itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Soul Engine was only ever supposed to be a plot device, although I did wind up liking it. You having access, you only had access to like the last 4 sessions.
Yeah, and that was almost entirely too much because we could build anything we wanted.
Yeah.
As long as Flake kept feeding people to it, which he was totally fine doing. I liked the plot in that I was kind of always approaching it from a humorous perspective. When you asked us questions, my question for Flake was, can you build a house using only a hammer? Because he is just a thug, but he's also like a genetically gifted thug. Like, and so he's basically the question of, can you be a thug so hard you become the boss? Like, if Baz had come back in the campaign, Flake would have been like, oh, thank God, I did the best I could while you were gone, but I didn't know where you were. Like, he would have thought he was still employed by Baz, by Salty. Like, so I kind of liked the humor of, he started off as like, hey, help me kill these guys so I can take control of a dock racket. And then his answer to that was to drive a boat full of dead cops through their house. And that eventually led to him like getting employed and eventually slaying vampires and gods just by happenstance and like ridiculous Frank Miller thuggery. So it worked for me because I was trying to write somewhat of an absurdist tale, and Flake did it. He never had an arc. He didn't change. He just was himself until no one else could stop him. Yeah. So good for him.
Yeah. It's an American success story.
The American success story. Have no arc, learn nothing. Yeah. Except be a powerful wizard.
Exactly. That was his arc, going from not being a wizard to being a wizard. So it's basically Harry Potter.
Boy who lived.
Yeah. I will.
With more skin conditions.
Yeah. I will say, like, I did have the idea for the Darkest Night, and like that being the resolution of the plot, pretty early on. Certainly by the time you guys found the Forgotten Prisoner, I kind of envisioned that as a possible ending, or the good ending, unless you guys decided to go like do some, just be, I don't know, go unless you're like, oh, turn the city into a giant, demon meat factory. Sounds great. Let's do it. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be cheeky here for just a second and say we should all congratulate Aaron for hearing the phrase Darkest Night multiple times during the final session and not talking about Green Lantern. Aaron, congratulations. You did so well.
I didn't see a point in it and no one would laugh. So yeah.
Yep. But I think, to be honest, and I know that the ending might be a little too, it's sort of a little against the idea of Blades in the Dark being sort of this gritty crime drama set in a very dismal city. But like, I mean, I'm going to be honest, part of that was personal. I just wanted to have a fucking happy ending for an RPG campaign.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, I liked it.
Yeah.
I like that there's just a dude wandering around the city now who's killed 3 gods, and if he falls asleep in your bed, you have to let him lay there, like, however long he wants to. Like, you just walk away.
Yep.
And as for the ramifications of the world, I actually really like that it wasn't just a, we converted all these demons into spirits again and everything's immediately right. It's that, this is a spiritual and ecological situation, since ghosts are actually part of this world, and it's going to take time for it to do that. This is not within your generation or even in 100 generations, honestly. Let's just be about it.
Before
something really changes.
The whole idea of the dark side is that it is a long scale thing. It is like you could run games in a post Darkest Night Blazing the Dark campaign, and it would basically be the same, at least for like 100 years. Like it would the same kind of, like, if I run Blazing the Dark, it'll be post Darkest Night, but it'll be exactly as it is in the book. People will just, I guess it's a little brighter. It's like 0.1% lighter than it was a year ago. So, it's fine. We still got to go murder these dudes for money. So, Burke, any thoughts on the campaign in that regard?
No, honestly.
It's a very Audra answer.
Yeah. We should talk actually about the characters. I do legit like the difference in personalities everyone brought. Audra was being the strong silent type it worked really well, because the when Audra did act or did have a role playing scene, it was that much more interesting.
Me protecting the campaign from my inability to engage with anything seriously, role playing wise. So,
one of my regrets is that I did not work your family into more of the campaign.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
That like I wrote up a Google Doc, and we didn't really touch on it except for one time.
Yeah, with that one, that one adventure was really good. But yeah,
Was that the ghost stagecoach thing?
That was getting my brother's shipping company to smuggle out the criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
as part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was for information. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah. I really did like that, and
but I love how Audra just wanted to do drugs and fuck with the weather, and was just. It was like Daria if she was a fucking wizard. It was great. She was just over it all the time. It was so good.
It's weird. Like, I actually think in terms of character interaction stuff, I like all of the weird side stuff throughout Duskvol in a way. Just, I guess, hypocritical, because I was also, talked to you early on about overarching plot between games. But I loved all of the just like Rodolfo, the dumb painter you can lie to about ghosts and come to his parties. Or all the stuff with family and Miss Amelia. So all of that stuff I don't know, it's a tough balance. There's just a lot of stuff.
It does do an excellent job making your characters seem part of a narrative and community web, like before you showed up. Like it does a great job making your character feel lived in by the time you start as level 1. So
that's true. I did try and work, and we didn't have like every single plot thread wrapped up, obviously, but I did like you guys remembering to bring Raffaello in at the very end for get his entourage to help you assault the vampire manor.
Man, there's gonna be a kick-ass painting of like the charge across Skurlock's bridge.
That is, I do picture it as
some topless Duskvolian woman waving a flag.
Exactly. The French Revolution. Yeah.
That's just going to be a giant fresco somewhere.
Remember, there was some into doing the whole thing on the basis that the women would be clothed and the men would be unclothed, and it'd be revolutionary.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's fine.
There we go.
It's Rodolfo, so everyone is naked and they're all ghosts, but there's still flags. Yeah.
And of course, salvage was Aaron's always a delight to have as a player in a game, and salvage was certainly no exception to that. Fucking blowguns, man, they're wild.
How do they
honestly,
Yeah.
I'll make a confession about this. That when I was looking at the character sheet, I completely glazed over the fact that there was a pistol in my equipment list.
Thank God you did.
But also afterwards, I'm like,
everyone gets a blow dart to the nuts.
Yeah, it's like I honestly thought it would be way more interesting, and that was also to use that as an easier way to get around, maybe more stealthily or to take care of something. But then I looked at it saying, "Oh, developing all of these compounds takes way more time, and this is what I have." Well, just eye blind poison and trans powder. Let's go for it. It's just going to be a rave every time salvage shows up.
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely the right choice to make as a player. Yeah. But I mean, we can't overlook Vimes too, because Vimes, I feel
all things.
Yeah, no, there were a lot of really good scenes with you, like other blue coats, and you dealing with that. And yeah,
so
lying about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I figured, like, since Caleb wasn't doing it, somebody needed to take on the role of the liar.
Yeah.
But, like, Vibes is sort of symptomatic. Like, I've thought back. Like, I tried the last 2 RPPR campaigns I can remember playing in, the short run Unknown Armies, and then Gate 9. I tried really hard to swerve out of my typecast, which I have come to realize is always... Bill's character is done with this bullshit.
Yeah.
And I did not succeed at staying away from that. It's done. Like from day one, I was just done with all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's you gotta eat. It's every character you play is just a version of yourself. I mean that an actor's very deep.
Don't love that look.
But yeah, some of my favorite sessions though, actually, like one of my favorite sessions as a GM was the session when you broke into the Vault of Secrets, because that was the session where Caleb wasn't there, and so.
Thanks, Rob.
No, because it was a good opportunity, because you guys were like, oh god, we don't have Flake, what do we do? And seeing that contrast of these players who normally you'd be interacting with Flake were having to deal with each other, and it's still working across. I mean, Flake had so many great moments though, but like
no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
He was a blunt instrument.
Yeah. And it still wound up being a very blunt plan of, just fucking, tactical breaching and, sneak in and then breach out just, after they got the thing, they had to blow up walls to escape. But yeah. I liked it when, there were certain sort of character rhythms of, Flake and Salvage arguing about whether to murder people or how that kind of thing. And
my favorite part was when Flake could teach Salvage acting.
Yes.
Because I wrote in his backstory that they let him plan the Bordello acts because he was just the bouncer and had nothing else to do. So I got it in my head that he really liked directing and imagined himself as a director. So I love the idea of this, like, essentially insane orangutan Russian anarcho-nihilist giving directing acting decisions to Salvage while Vimes is there just like, I don't know, figure it out, like I gotta go do something else. It's not that hard, just lie to them. And Flake's like, no, I will walk you through motivations of character.
I just felt like I was on the most insane version of Swan Lake and the Russian Taskmaster. That's right.
Another favorite was also, I think, one of the later dinner parties, where you had to find out where the Vault of Secrets was, and so you were going to deal with the Hive, and I think it was like Audra had to go in, and who else was it? Was it Salvage, or is it Vimes? But yeah, it was Audra having to do social stuff, and I remember that because like the guy who's running, the guy you needed the information from, the Vault of Secrets guy, took a shine to you. So I did. Yeah. the fish out of water thing of just like
Oh.
yeah, that's always fun. I think you of course then eventually summon some lightning to cause a distraction so you could excuse yourself.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. That was
Isn't that when you burn the house down?
I did burn down a dinner party.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it was that one. That's when also the last of the Foghounds escaped and swore revenge.
Classic.
Yeah, classic stuff. Yeah, are there any other memorable episodes that you remember that stick out to you?
Retrieving the soul engine from the ghost lands or what have you.
Putting the fake one out in there, the time warp episode.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I largely improvised that. I knew it was going to be weird.
Very good job.
Yeah. But yeah, I just figured you're making a super weird thing to look super weird. So what if you accidentally invented time travel? Yeah, that was fun. Caleb, were there any standout moments for you as Flake?
When I had to try and justify the fact that I took Ghost Fighter and a point of a tune because Burke was moving and we couldn't do ghost shit anymore. And so Flake just decided he was a powerful wizard and believed it hard enough that it worked. And then he puppeted a corpse around in front of some nomadic cavalrymen and started a civil war.
Oh,
I wasn't
right.
here for that.
Yeah.
with a bad marionette dance and
yeah, that was fun.
terrible stage acting. Yeah. I just love that he believed he was a wizard so hard he put on a little show and it started an insurgency campaign that made the state fail.
Yeah. Good times. Aaron, are there any other standout moments for you?
If immediately kind of thinking back to Flake, which was the
or for salvage, anything, any moment in the campaign, really.
Yeah. Well, Flake and salvage immediately. I have to think about the directing me for becoming a acting pimp during.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Which my mind keeps going back hey, I just basically did the whole Hank Hill thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is the exact one. Honestly, at least for salvage, I have to say the two things. One, the blow dart wedding is probably. I'm happy
in the Raptors, double six and fools.
Just because it shouldn't have worked, and it did. But also proud moment too. It just I say this with complete and utter pride in my voice. Linking to the monkey's paw that was the soul engine and not using it in any way other than what we needed to.
Yeah, so, that was very good of you, Aaron. You restrained yourself. Yeah.
Because if I honestly had the thought at one moment when you talked about just the holes, reinserting holes into Ghost, it's well, here's your steampunk Transformers race world. Deal with it.
Hey, Waldorf, come over here for a second.
You have a new purpose in life.
Yeah, let me upgrade you for a second. Yeah. Burke, were there any other moments in particular that yeah.
God, I already kind of said it, but anything with just hanging out with all the opulent artists.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of those.
I liked how Flake so desperately wanted to impress Audra because she was withholding and he was fucked up weird psychologically that way. Just the people who want the least to do with him, him and even Salty, he's just so desperate to impress. To the point he's just yeah, I'll try cocaine with you. I've never done it before. I only weigh 350 pounds and move like a linebacker. What could go wrong?
Why is that wall gone?
Yeah.
It all worked out. But yeah. One thing we did get to know the setting of Blades in the Dark pretty well. So, and it is, people can the closest thing people compare it to is Dishonor, but it is kind of like that, but not exactly. It's also a bit like Thief, the Dark Project. And it's a very sort of particular kind of subgenre of dark fantasy, kind of steampunky, but not. But yeah, I know, Caleb, you mentioned that there's some implications of the setting that are kind of like, certainly if you're running your own Blades in the Dark campaign, you should take that into mind before you run it. And it certainly came up a lot in our last couple episodes about the ghosts.
Oh yeah. If the answer can be ghosts, it is going to be ghosts. Like, yeah. I think that really derives from like I don't want to call it a problem, the phenomenon, the psychic maelstrom phenomenon of, because all these things share DNA with Apocalypse World, of course, and the psyker class or whatever it's called in Apocalypse World, and the touching of the psychic maelstrom. The psychic maelstrom is mentioned like 800 times in that fucking book and is defined 0 of them. So it's just anything and everything. And like, this setting is so chock full of ghosts that they have to have a wall to separate the area with just a shit ton of ghosts from the area with all of the ghosts. And so the answer is always ghost, man. So I feel like, yeah, that might be a phenomenon that happens when you give sort of a setting aspect that is so diffuse and loosely defined that it can be the cause of and answer to every problem.
Look, how great is it that they managed to harness a renewable resource so early in their tech curve?
Yeah,
True.
this is a really weird run through of Civ. It's speed run strat.
Well, you know,
yeah.
those modders, they
Yeah. If you jack your religion up over 10,000, it freaks out and starts putting it into your tech tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That certainly did come up. Like, well, it's Ghost. It's obviously like, yeah, because it's as a GM, it kind of like, well, I guess everything does. It always comes back down to ghosts in this fucking game, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, of course, I did exacerbate it with the Soul Engine because I was like, but yeah.
Which was alarming just because it turned things into stuff that wasn't ghosts.
Yep. It does.
Yeah.
The most scarce thing in a Duskvolian economy is tangible objects. They have an absolute surplus of spectral objects, like rock bottom ghost prices. It's a very flooded market.
Yep.
But like food, we ain't got none of that.
I'd buy that for a ghost.
I'm surprised they don't use them as the currency, like seashells or something.
Wait. We missed a perfect opportunity to
we should have turned the Soul Engine into a ghost coin engine.
Yes, the ultimate cryptocurrency.
Oh no.
Crypt currency.
Currency. There we go. Yeah.
We run your relatives through the blockchain. They come out as hard currency you can't spend.
I mean, didn't they
collapse the gold standard or whatever the fuck the currency economy is?
So ghost coin miners are the people who set up outside the ghost wall and just capture wild ghosts and turn them into coins. Yeah,
we just set up like a big pose like Luigi's Mansion and hoover them in.
Yeah. What otherwise common object do they have to do that is completely jacking up the market for it?
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a new campaign idea.
No kidding.
Yeah. Ghost coin mining. Fighting the power of the state.
To be honest, I was thinking about trying to run Blades for some people I work with before this campaign started, and I think if I come back around to that, I just got the campaign seed.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Or at least something that will definitely be happening.
Burke, were there any other campaign elements or setting elements that stand out to you as some things that could be, I don't know, really interesting to you, or kind of like you would change, or I don't know?
No, because I think the most interesting one we've already covered, which is Ghost, which I engaged with playing a Whisperer. I guess as smugglers, It would have been cool to do more smuggling. But
Yeah.
that's not really like a world building stuff, and that's our fault anyway
Yeah.
for just getting into murdering and stealing and
Yeah.
being
I
general
mean,
criminals.
I didn't give you. If I had reframed the plot instead of like a secret war between two demons over other demons, probably that would have helped.
Maybe.
but-
I also think I don't know if the game actually supports it,
Mhm.
but it would be interesting to end up outside of Duskvol and one of the other continents. Because
Yeah.
there's this kind of whole world outside of the city.
There is, and there's brief descriptions of it, but I just didn't want to do all. Like, the thing is, Duskvol is so written up in useful ways. Like, this again, part of the information. Like, there's a 1-page sheet with names and like of character, just common names and names of public houses, and I just generic NPCs. Well, not generic, but like named NPCs and what they do. And like Raffaello is on that list. He's just a painter interested in the occult. And that's all that's written about him. And like, I took that and ran with it. And I would have had to come up with a bunch of that stuff, and make it different. So it's not just Duskvol, but it says there's a different name on the sign. You know what I mean? Like, I would have had to do, because there's not, I mean, actually, to be fair, I did not look to see if there was that kind of support. Maybe
I think in the Kickstarter edition, there are a couple of other cities detailed, but that is obviously super hard to get a hold of now in legal ways, and actually support indie authors.
Yeah. Oh, so it's not available now as a separate thing that you can buy. It was only exclusive for Kickstarter backers.
I think it might have been, but I haven't dug into it completely.
Okay. Well, that's an odd choice, and certainly annoying. Yeah. Also, just as sort of an aside, a lot of RPPR fans, a lot of people mess me. Oh, have you look at this new game? Yeah, when do you guys should check this out? It's like, well, this is a very new game, but I got Blades in the Dark in 2017, and we ran it in 2020, so there's a bit of a turnaround time for games Blades in the Dark has been a game I've wanted to play for a while, like ever since it came out. It's like, oh, this is really cool. So even for like Lancer, I got that last year, and I don't know when I'm going to run that. Heart, the Below the Spire. I'm looking at it right now, my copy. It is a very pretty book, and I don't know when I'm going to play it because, it takes a while for us to get to a campaign, especially a game that we're going to do a campaign of. So I appreciate everyone mentioning new games to me, but like, there's a backlog, and it's like a multiple year turnaround at this point. So, oops. But if I were to do Blades in the Dark again, I would probably look for that kind of support or run a different version of it. I know there's like support for different crew types as well. Like, they added some new stuff, another character type. So I would definitely add a lot more material to make it not just the Duskvol that we played in. Like, I would do, basically like, the second time you play through a game, you add a bunch of mods to make it a little, add a little spice to it. Something like that.
I mean, if we were going to play a Forged in the Dark game again, we should do the Weird West one.
Ooh. There's two others. There's a mecha one, and then there's a magical girl one, that both sound interesting as well.
Both good options.
Yeah.
And then there's the Metroidvania one that's coming.
Oh, that's what's that one called? Do you know?
I forget. Let me check my Kickstarters.
Okay. But why are you doing that? Aaron, were there any elements of the setting that stood out to you?
In particular, mainly the big thing was the whole Hull culture, I guess, if it makes sense. Just how it was being used around. That's like the entirety of Duskvol in particular. Oh, I'm trying to remember it was called. I keep wanting to say Whitechapel, but I know that's not right. So
White Crown.
White Crown. Thank you.
The rich person district. Yeah.
Yeah, the rich person's area of that too, which was equally parts, interesting, but also horrifying because of how just easily this was used and saying like, well, let's have the souls of the damned poor service into eternity. So that I would like to see something more of that, and maybe a future one shot or a campaign could be like the internal Hull revolt.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that could be an interesting way to an interesting plot to carry on with.
I mean, thinking back to it, I could have done like if I'd done a campaign plot that was focused on smuggling, like you guys are hired by a insurrection to smuggle in arms, and then of course a blue coat, undercover blue coat's like, well, why don't you spy on them for us and we'll pay you, or if not, we'll of course kill you, and working both sides or something like that. That could have been interesting, making hulls, like hulls that are secretly free, and just pretending to be programmed until it's time to rise up. So yeah, help Skynet overthrow the humans.
So
Yeah.
two things. That Kickstarter is Brinkwood, The Blood of Tyrants. And yeah, it's like aesthetically Metroidvania, but I think in concept it's going to come out a whole lot more Darkest Dungeon.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, building a rebellion that will overthrow the blood-soaked vampires that oppress and dominate your world. Yes, please.
Ooh, neat.
Second, I was looking around to see if I could find in a hurry confirmation that the extra blade setting material was Kickstarter only. And guys, we screwed up. I mean, so John Harper released a playbook for Railjacks. So basically, be a hobo on the ghost trains.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that would be a good for a shorter campaign. So if I do that again, I'll come up with a plot that could be resolved in 8 to 10 sessions, introduce it from the beginning, and go from there. I think that was probably, yeah, something like that. Like you're all heading home, or maybe it could be basically like you need to raise enough money to save the orphanage, the orphanarium, or all the kids will be turned into hulls. Go on the rails and try and find this treasure. Yeah, or something like that. Or you're all on the run from assassins because you saw something you weren't supposed to.
Ghost Emperor of the North.
Ghost Emperor of the North. That's it. Oh god, now I want to do that. Yeah, fucking Ernest Borgnine as a vampire conductor.
The Spirit Train.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. Oh man. Oh, damn. Oh well, what could have been next time. Yeah, any final thoughts on this campaign? Any lessons learned, or
I enjoyed it deeply, and like there were times that like this got me through 2020 in certain respects.
Aw. Well, yeah, it was certainly something to look forward to each week. And yeah, when the game was really firing on all cylinders, when you guys were really in the midst of things, or just listening to you all just do some really good role play, it was like, it was really nice. Yeah, Caleb, any final thoughts on Flake?
I enjoyed it a lot. I'm glad I finally got to play it.
Yeah,
talk about turnaround time. I've been hearing about Blood Eats for years, and then I never get a chance to play it. So
yeah,
maybe I'll run something like Band of Blades or Brinkwood one day. So.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I think Band of Blades is the next Forged in the Dark style game I want to try.
Yeah, the sort of desperate berserk Band of the Hawk kind of company role playing is pretty interesting to me. So
Black Company?
I'll see if I can get the rights to the Guts theme. We can just listen to the entire campaign. Yeah, I think the next campaign that I am going to run is going to be Delta Green Impossible Landscapes, because yes, I am that guy. It's Carcosa.
My God,
this book was made for me as I throw myself into a hole on a mountain.
Have you read it yet? It is.
I have read parts of it. I haven't read
it. It is going to be a feat to run, man.
Yeah.
That book is like fucking yarn intentionally. It's just tangled up inside of itself.
I'm trying to keep myself intentionally ignorant of this because I know Ross was going to run it, but holy God, it's hard.
It seems like running like Masks, like only if like instead of that like 5,000 page like what if you went here, it just burrows into itself, like with it's just self-referential across different points across. It's so wild. I mean, one of my favorite
experience of playing a role-playing game of all time is actually playing that playtest of Impossible Landscapes with you at Gen Con, run by Dennis Detwiller, that one time, and actually being able to figure out what the fuck was going on and being able to, like, I figured out what to do, and we did the thing, and we succeeded in getting out of that horrible place we were in. I was like, oh my God, I get it. And
especially because it was 3 a.m.
Yeah.
None of us had slept in 2 days.
But I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength. So I'm excited to run it. I have no idea when, because I'm waiting for the full thing to get out before really diving into it. Like, I've read parts of the previews that have been posted on his Patreon, but I don't want to like fully read it until like the final PDF is out, or at least the one that'll go to press. And certainly that'll take me time to read, and then with considering how long this campaign is going to be posted for, I have some time. I don't need to get another campaign ready to go right away. So, I will.
I made a handout for that book. So.
Ooh, neat. So,
Demon Web 101.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I don't think I can. I don't know. Caleb, can you play in a game that you helped write then?
I mean, yeah. There's no hope. It doesn't matter if you know what's going on. It's just you're still gonna die. Like, yeah, okay. It doesn't read. You can't metagame it. Yeah.
Okay.
You're just screwed. The second the game starts, it's over, man. Your character is gonna say bye.
Oh. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So that's something to look forward to at some point in our PPR. But yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you all so much for joining this Blades in the Dark campaign. If you have questions, comments about it, please post in the comments or let us know on social media, or of course on the RPPR Patreon Discord, where we can all talk about that. And I don't know what else to plug, because again, this is not going to be posted for like 8 months. So, or something.
Have you tried cat food? Oh. Surprisingly nourishing in the wasteland. Get over it. Cat food.
Oh, all right. But before we go, we do have, of course, Caleb is at HeavenOnGCal on Twitter. And Burke is.
I also probably have like a bunch of Patreons by now.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And of course,
subscribe to all of them, whatever they are called.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm sure, of course, we'll be doing some game designer workshop episodes on RPPR to talk about your upcoming projects and Patreon work and all that fun stuff. So, and Burke is, of course, my co-host on Night Clerk Radio at Night Clerk Radio on Twitter and nightclerkradio.com. And I'd say, what is your Twitter handle again? I got it wrong last
time.
Burke
McBurkinson.
That's it.
That's right.
And Aaron is at Beyond Sandrock. No, or is it at?
No, just at Aaron Karsten.
Aaron Karsten, yeah. And
you can,
yeah.
You can find me Railery's podcast streaming.
Yep. Twitch.tv/Railery podcasting. And Bill is on the RPPR Discord. So, and you can talk to him if you want.
I otherwise avoid social media. It is the privilege that I labor under.
Yeah, boy. Thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.